Back in the day.
I grew up in Lapeer County. I've always lived in Michigan. I had 3 sisters. They were all older than me. I was the young one.
Well, I grew up basically in several different towns. I was born in Kingston, Michigan, and then we moved to Breckenridge and Stockbridge, and then we finally were in Williamston. That was my final growing up time when I was finished in high school there. Well, I have 3 siblings, and we are 5 years apart, which sometimes makes a difference in family interaction. Basically, it was a good time. Of course, like all families, good and not so good. My dad was a teacher, school teacher, and we moved around a lot, obviously. And we had a good time. My dad had a great sense of humor, and Mom was a great mom.
Did I like growing up on a farm? Well, I really didn't know anything else. I mean, it was what it was. I didn't see it as a disadvantage at the time. I just saw it as what was. I was invited to a youth rally one evening by a girl that I was dating, and I said, what's a youth rally? But anyway, I went, and the features, the program for the evening was 2 films, both from Bob Jones College, now University, Bob Jones University. One of them was rather an artistic thing, and I don't remember anything of that. And the other one was Bob Jones Sr. Standing at a podium the whole time. I think it was black and white, and he was preaching the gospel. And the ideas came to me as brand new. I'd probably heard them sometime, but they came as brand new. And it's easy to see things in retrospect, but that's really the time when everything changed.
Well, the 3 words I would use to describe Grandpa would be intellectual. I describe him as that. He's very kind and caring, and he's a very biblical man. A great time I had with Grandpa is really when he was building our tree fort. He built like this huge 3-story tree fort, and like anything me or my sister would like mention, just like, hey, you know, it'd be really cool if we had, in a total daydream, like a couple days later it'd appear.
I was very impressed that he could actually build one.
Well, I did grow up my mother was a Christian, and my father was a good man, but I don't believe a believer at that time. So Mom was a great woman to find us in church and to be about different things in the Christian community. And she would pray with us before we went to school, basic things like that. So, and we were in a great church.
I would say Grandma is an incredibly faithful person. Her entire life has been committed to the work that's right in front of her, whether that's raising her girls, putting meals on the table, working at MSU. I would say many parts of her life have not been overly glamorous. I mean, she's never been the one to like go get a manicure every week or wear diamonds, all over the place. But she's been exceptionally faithful in things that may appear mundane on the outside, but is really the work that she's been called to. And so I would say she's just an incredibly faithful person. Second, I would say Grandma is incredibly generous. I think some of my earliest memories of Grandma were the birthday days out with Grandma that she gave us for a long time, and we would get to go out with Grandma to what seemed like at the time a million stores. I think in reality we went to Schuler's a lot, and sometimes Best Buy or a store for clothes or something. But we would get to pick out a new outfit, and I know she always bought me Trixie Belden books because those were my absolute favorite at the time, and I always felt like she was really looking for things that would expand my world, and she was so giving, not just of her financial resources, but of her time. I remember her taking us to Panera, and we would eat these paninis, or she would get a salad or something, and we would just sit and talk for hours, even though, I mean, I was like 10. I feel like nothing I said at that time was particularly interesting, but I always felt like she was so generous with what she had.
The things that matter boil down quite simply probably to what must I do, what could I do, what do I want to do, but not without each one of those ideas involving not only myself but other people. What must I do with myself and other people? What could I do with myself and other people? And what would I like to do with myself and other people? And you won't get that done in this life.
That signifies them around you.
Well, some of my basic values right now are to be truthful. That may seem odd, but it seems that in this last 4 years, so many things have been committed or admitted, and you cannot tell if it's the truth or not. Any statement that's made, it sounds good, but inside you might say, how do I know that's the truth? So truthfulness, and I think I taught my children that also. And I guess that was a basic, and then, and even in my later years, my basic value is just be spending time in the Word. That is our guiding light, and so we need that light so that we can be light to the others.
This is really advice from both of them, and it's where I get my phrase that I've taught you girls: go to the text. I remember them both, and I mean Grandma, again, recently. What does the Scripture say about that? What makes that right or wrong?
Might be love them where they're at. Well, Steve, just gotta love them where they're at. So, yes, I'd say, and, just be supportive of people, love people where they're at, and take them as they come, and I'd say that's.
Well, what really matters in life, that is something to think about. I would think the most urgent thing is to love God and to be about things that are eternal. And even though we have many things that are open to us to do, but to get that balance and then to be faithful to your husband and your family.
Well, simply said, the truth of the gospel.
I'd say they've taught me, and I know I can speak for the others, how to love and how to be better followers of Christ. Like Grandpa has talked to me a few times about faith, and I believe he's talked to others, and always they're like a perfect role model, and not everyone is lucky to have grandparents like that, but we are so fortunate to have people we can look up to.
What we try to do here is we try to wash as we go, and that keeps the size of the dishes loads at the end lower. Although we love the family time that we spend.
Mom has a way of making a really beautiful place to be. We have somebody who's willing to make a meal that you sit down for. It creates this place where people want to hang out and talk and share, and that is so valuable. And I know it's in so many families it doesn't exist, and yet it's like the centerpiece of a lot of our time together, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a treasure. I would describe my parents as always being there, reliable, predictable, in the best possible way. So you always know you have a place to go.
Engaged, in addition to doing what parents needed to do. So, of course, at the dinner table, when all Grandma and Grandpa are totally engaged with what's going on, you can imagine that what must have been on their minds from the work that they did, Grandma balancing a house and working full-time, still have no idea how all that was accomplished. I really don't.
Things to describe them as parents was very dedicated. So always wanting to do what was needed to help us excel or succeed.
We never had chaos in our house. There was order. Clothes were cleaned. We lived in a clean house. The children were not overworked, so it wasn't like we were doing all the tasks. We usually put the chicken in before she got home from work, but we still got to do all our sporting events and 4-H, ceramics. So I just don't know how all that happened. And then with Grandpa, all of his different job changes and whatever was going on. But when we came to the table, we never heard anything negative about that. And I would say they were as fully engaged as two people could be.
So one of the stories that I love about Grandpa is when he would write letters to us at college. So, of course, this is before electronic communication was, like it is now. But it took a lot of effort, and he would write postcards to all of us, like on a weekly basis.
I will say that Grandpa brought a lot of humor and joy to our house. I remember just silly little things, but around the dinner table, maybe every night, a lot of nights, it was really a time that we got together and heard about people's days, but Grandpa always had a story, I think because he's so involved with people.
So one thing to describe a feeling of belonging that I think my mom and dad just lived out, so sometimes it's hard to pull these things out to answer that question, but I feel like there was a huge amount of respect, and that's a big component of feeling like you belong.
First phrase comes to mind, unified front. They themselves were people of very high standards. Not that they didn't talk about it. It wasn't like, oh, puffed up, look how, it was none of that. It was very much, you knew what you were about. You knew what a Phelps was about. And I loved it.
Well, when you start a family, I don't know if you, some people might have a real good idea as far as structuring it. I think there were basic things we wanted to do. Bob was a great force, good force in our family, a very mature father, and with lots of vision, and very had a lot of wisdom. So I don't know if I consciously was structuring. So
I don't think it was highly strategic. And again, I think it's one of those things you recognize in retrospect.
They were not the wealthiest people. They were not the most social people. They weren't members of the country club. They didn't go fishing. They weren't involved in football games. So socially, like in the world sense, and many of the Christians, like church people, did those things. That did not define or give us the proud nature of who it was. It was because of who they were and what that represented. Not at all better than anyone.
A very strong idea is that you need to do it for them and not for you. Whether it's instructing them, whether it's making them pleasant things for them, whether it's trying to protect them, it's helping them out of a jam, whatever it is. It's fundamental. It needs to be for them and not for you.
well, to keep our family, I'll say structured and moving forward, I think to be in constant contact with the generation as it goes down, and we can learn a lot from the younger generation, our grandchildren. I've learned a lot from my grandchildren, and so that would be key to me, and see that I finish well in that area. As far as having a hard part of family now, there isn't much a challenge to it. They're on their own, they're pushing forward, and I would say it's not a challenge, it's a joy, because I really do have fabulous grandchildren, and they all seem to be in various stages of walking on the right pathway. I think the most enjoyable part of the family are doing things together and people being cooperative together, people being excited together on trips. We've gone to the Boundary Waters, we've done many things together, and little things, camped in the backyard, done tours together. So I think that's a great joy.
Probably one of the best memories of the current family is to experience friendship, closeness, respect, in whatever area it is. Sometimes they ask for advice, but they always show a lot of respect, and I can't give you instances of that, but that's like a reward.
They've influenced my entire life. It's like the matriarch and patriarch of the entire family, basically.
The best thing about Grandma is she always cares for me and always is worrying about me and not about her.
They get behind each other in the things that they tackle together.
I'm not supposed to cry in just a second question, okay? But, it's just that faithfulness that has made a lot of wonderful experiences for all of us and given us a very rich life.
He's been always willing to teach us things, and whatever he does, whether it's like take us outside to look at birds or something, or building stuff with us in the barn.
I think on a wider scale, Grandma and Grandpa are really committed people. They've committed themselves to building this family and this legacy, and they keep this open door policy.
One trait that I would like to both model and pass on that I see in Grandpa would be his intentionality, and then also his godliness. I would say both those things, just his love for the Word, his constant reading of the Word, and his faithfulness, quiet faithfulness.
They make a great team. They're very steady, steadfast, very supportive.
Well, they've influenced me in a way that's very positive because they're really just so sacrificial with everything they have.
There's always a good laugh to be had, and those moments are just hilarious. Yeah, I love laughing with Grandma.
I could go on and on about amazing support, even today. So
She has a huge impact in things that we enjoy every single day.
But every time I go over, she offers me whatever I need, or is always super generous.
They really set a standard, and there's an expectation. Not that they put on anyone, but just that they are a couple who are worth looking up to and replicating and mirroring.
probably every good trait I have is directly attributable to my parents. Really, without hands down.
Family is very important, and we have invested a lot in it, and it's been a good investment.
26. Wow. Brisk.
Okay, guys, and then I'm going to ask you to say Happy Thanksgiving, Meg. Okay. Oh, okay. Just I got to get my